then I'll do the leveling. If you work right off the workbench, a lot harder to keep adjusting and leveling a workbench than it is a temporary surface like this. So here I'll check it on my bubble balance, and right now the bubble's pointing towards me, so the side you want to raise is the side that the bubble's pointing to. Or I take it back, the opposite side. And that's what I'm using these business cards for, just as something to adjust the platform that we're balancing. So now I've got the bubble perfectly centered between the hairs. And as far as the east-west alignment, it's just a very small tad off to this side. So we want to put it one or two. Actually, one was just enough. So I've got it perfectly balanced east to west and north to south. Now what we want to do is, first of all, lay the whole piece on there and see if we got lucky and have a good balance. It's pretty close, but not exact. On the east-west, it's just a tad off. So instead of having to go through all these, I'd probably just maybe take a couple rings off and check the balance at this point. And here it's good, and here it's good. So it might be just in this neck piece. Actually, that's even good. It's in this top piece. And that's where it's at. So you just get the board back real quick. Clamp it down. Probably only need one clamp. Now, where the bubble is pointing to is the side that has to be changed. So the bubble was pointing slightly to my left, so I take that side, and which is this right here, and I like to work it at 3 o'clock. Whatever side I want to change, I'll work to my right hand. So if the reference, in this case, it was 90 degrees from the reference point this way, so I want my reference line to be straight at 12 o'clock. And then I'm just going to do a couple more circular sandings with a little bit more concentrated pressure on the side I want to reduce, like this. And then what you want to do, because again you can't make perfect pressure, balanced pressure, if this is a side, you sand, turn it over and also sand the other side. Then check it out. The reason I say that is if you don't, then you might correct the balance going east to west, but then you're going to find it's going to throw off your north-south alignment. Where by doing it both top and bottom, in other words, if this is a side I wanted to reduce, that means reduce it from either or in what I'm saying, both. So just whatever amount you were going to remove, do half that amount from this side, flip it over and take the rest off from the top. That way you get a balanced sanding. And as it turned out, this turned out good, because now I've got the bubble centered that way and the bubble centered that way. Okay, now that we've got it balanced, now we've got to glue it up. With the purchase of a Ringmaster comes this clamp also free. It's a nice clamp. The nicest thing about this is this little nut. It's a slip nut, which is great, so you don't have to use a wing nut and spend all day winding that up and down the threaded rod. First thing we want to do is use the right glue. And I highly recommend a cyanoacrylic glue, commonly called a CA glue. And the variety I like is the one that sets in 5 to 15 seconds. There are different formulas. There is one that sets in 1 to 3 seconds. It's too fast. By the time you put your pieces together, you don't have time to do any fine alignment of them. You still have to work quickly, because it will set up in 5 to 15 seconds, but it gives you time to do it. So don't get the quick setting time. Get the 5 to 15 second or somewhere in that vicinity, typically it's a gap filling variety. Now if we're doing fine workmanship, as we did on the sanding board here, that should preclude any need for a gap filling property, but it's always nice to have that as well. To glue it, again, I turn the vase upside down and I start with the bottom two pieces. And what I do is get my glue, take the bottom piece. Now the arrow's pointing downward. That's the way you want to go because we're gluing this upside down. So, you know, it would normally be like that. So you want that arrow, again, that arrow's helpful to tell you which direction you want that piece to go. You don't want to glue it upside down. So I want to put the glue on this surface here with the arrow pointing down. And you just take your CA glue. All right, already it's a little bit clogged. I find it very easy to unclog it just using a safety pin. And what's nice about a safety pin as opposed to a regular pin, of course, is that you can close it up, but it's also easier to put it in and take it out with this. So anytime you have a clog up, just use that pin. And then what you want to do is just put on a nice even layer. You don't have to flood the thing with it, but you want a nice even, bead around there. Then you take it off to the side of the clamp and you carefully lay the bottom piece to it, trying to get as close as you can to the alignment you want initially. And then once it's on, you have time to make any fine adjustments to it before it'll set up on you. In this case, it's pretty close already. So now I'll take it, again, going upside down, slide it over the threaded rod, put the washer on, and the nut. And this is what the pliers are for. I recommend using pliers to actually tighten that, so it's more than a hand tight. This glue is not the kind where you can put too much pressure and have too much glue squeeze out. The more pressure you have, the better, as long as you don't go too crazy and actually split the wood. Once this is glued up like this, and I usually, to play it safe, keep it for at least 30 seconds like this before I release the clamp and go to glue on the next piece. So anyhow, this piece is ready. All we do is just loosen the nut, tilt it a little, slide it off. We go to our next piece, and on that, we just use this ring again here, put the fine bead of glue on it. Take the next ring, flip it over. Make sure you keep your lines lined up, your reference lines. Set it on there as close as possible initially, and then do any fine adjustments. Then I usually put a little bit of a pressure on it before I set on a clamp, and it helps set it so it doesn't slide around when you're placing it on the clamp. Once it's on the clamp, again, put the washer on, the nut. Instead of being repetitive, I've gone ahead and finished gluing up the rest of the pieces. Again, keeping in mind those reference lines are staying aligned to each other. Try to keep all of your pieces evenly laminated. The more accurately you do it, the better it's going to turn for you on the lathe. This is ready now. Oh, and the other thing was the extra little piece of paper toweling here. I used that to wipe off the glue, and that was my reminder to let you know, don't be lazy and forget that, or you will have a lot of clog-ups. Now we mount it on the lathe simply by using the same hole, in the bottom, like that. We go over here. Now this is what my magnet pieces for. Very difficult without real long fingers to get that washer in there, so if you just carefully put that on a magnet piece and set it right in over the spindle like that, then take your socket with the extension, put it on, first put the nut in it, set that right in there and screw it right on. Then with the ratchet you can tighten it like that. And then to check, see how it wobbles. We've got a very slight wobble there. So what you try to loosen it and rotate this a little bit. Still a little bit. Loosen it, rotate a little bit more. There. You got a nice, what you're trying to achieve is that nice, even rotation with minimal wobble. And that would be caused from two things. Either you didn't align your rings properly when you glued them, or you didn't balance them properly with a bubble balance so that the side is perfectly level to where it's mounted on the spindle. Next thing to do is remove the cutting tool portion. So you just take the wrench, loosen the nut, and completely take it out. Lift the piece right off. Set it off to the side. Then just bring this back. Just tighten it up so it doesn't slide around. And now we work it as a regular lathe. Next thing is the abrasives. We're ready to start shaping. 99% of the work is done with just abrasives. No tooling is needed. It's started with a 36 grit sand belt. This again is aluminum oxide sand belts. You can use any sizes. I like the 3-inch wide variety. Either, in this case, it's a 3x24 sometimes, I believe. I don't know what this is. No, it's a 3x21. I also use this. You can see the difference. It's a 3x24. Either one's satisfactory. Whatever ones I can get the best buys on, I buy. Take your 36 grit, get it turning, and just start sanding. Now, as I'm doing this, I want to comment on one thing, and that's it's very important to use dust masks and eye protection if you want to. Eye protection I haven't found is necessary. Dust masks are very helpful if you want to keep your lungs for any length of time. Initially what I'm trying to do is just sand them completely level and get rid of the glue line there. As you noticed also, I don't worry about the glue squeeze out. I don't try to wipe it off. It's all going to be sanded away anyhow. What I'm looking at here is a vase with one angled surface, one straight surface, another angled surface, that's 3. A straight surface is 4, and another angled one is 5. So there's actually 5 different angled surfaces. And I'm going to sand it just like the angled surfaces dictate. Keep right in line with that angle. At the end, then I'll start shaping it to combine those angles and get a nice graceful curve. But for now, I'm just trying to get them sanded. And the thing I hope shows up on the camera, people ask, well, how long do you do it? Well, you can't teach experience. In time, you'll learn how much. There is no definitive answer except to keep stopping it periodically and see if it looks like it's sanded completely all the way through. In this case, it does. You've got rid of all the cut marks. The glue line has been sanded away. And I'm ready to progress to another surface. In this case, I'm going to do the bottom. And that won't take long at all. And I don't worry quite as much about that because I'm going to be tooling part of that. But for now, there's 2 surfaces sanded. The reason I'm interested in the camera, be able to show, and there's a good point right there. How far do you sand this way when you're sanding into the edges of this vertical piece? Natural concern is you don't want to sand through the piece. You only got